Hey, this is Babyface, and you know I got so.
First off, congrats on the new album. It's an honor to speak with you, a legend like yourself about this new project, and so great to see that, after so many decades of success, you're still here putting out such quality work. I guess, we were a bit surprised when you did some collaborations. A lot of the newer generation of R&B female artists are on this album. What was the decision like to do a collaboration project like that?
To be honest, the decision, it was a suggestion from my partner on the project, Rika, who actually came up with the idea to do this project. It was kind of like a Waiting XL 2.0, but instead of me just writing everything, it was more of an idea to collaborate with all these girls and write with them, and so that it would be with their voices as well as my voice, which I think ended up being an excellent idea. And it was educational as well as fun as well, putting it together. And, the whole idea kind of spewed from after doing Verses with Teddy Riley, funny. There was I picked up a whole lot more fans than I thought that I had at a different age group, and I thought, what is a way that I can still reach that fan base? And this was a clever way to still be able to kind of reach them without like being stuck in the 90s or being or just giving exactly what my core audience usually would like. That doesn't necessarily, go as far today. It only goes so many places because of just radio in general. So
right.
The landscape's changed. So
right.
Sometimes you got to change. If you can change with the landscape.
Right. Well, you mentioned it was educational for you to work with some of these artists. What was the biggest surprise for you, I guess, doing these collaborations?
Well, it's just kind of just being a writer, being a producer, and learning, being in there and kind of already listening to things in general. But when you listen to artists and listen to music today and R&B today and how people phrase things, how people talk, what they talk about, and how they say it, it's different than it would have been years ago. And I'm not necessarily in the streets or hearing that conversation on a daily basis. And even when you listen to it, it still isn't part of your everyday. So it was nice to be there and soak it up, and so that I could be genuine in my approach for it, because you never want to get caught looking like you're chasing it.
Absolutely. Something you mentioned was it was like a modern day Waiting to Exhale soundtrack. So, how would you compare just the creation of this album and then looking back versus creating that, soundtrack years ago? Were there any similarities in the creative process?
Not really. It was totally different because, in all honesty, the only similarities is that it's all girls.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's completely different because it was based off of a movie. It was based off of a particular script, a particular scenes, and written specifically for that. So every person that came in, I kind of had them in mind a little bit, but the scene was already written, and it was and the scene was written, and the song was kind of already written, and I wrote it towards having them in mind, but not really specifically for them. The players could have changed.
Right. That makes sense. But something that was cool was like you kind of let some of the ladies take the lead. You were a bit more in the background. It was almost like you were the featured artist on the song, and they were kind of the main artist. Was that your the way you set out to do, have them more stand out and just you kind of coming in the back? How did that work out?
Yes, I wanted to. Ultimately, as I started, I wanted to kind of showcase these artists. I wanted it to be about them more than it was about me. And I needed to figure out how to do that and even be a part of it without looking like the creepy uncle in the room trying to go at the girl.
Yeah.
So that was also, on purpose, figuring out ways to do it so that it felt, once again, organic, and felt like it wasn't me trying to push me. It was certainly my art and my production art in that sense, and working with these girls. But other than that, it was really a platform for these girls.
Right. But it was cool listening because, like you mentioned a bit, it wasn't you trying to do too much. Like, we felt like, they were giving you some of their sound, the more younger sound, but then at the same time, you were giving them some of what you're known for. So it was kind of like you met in the middle, and that's why I thought it was cool that it ended up organic.
Yes, I wasn't trying to abandon what I do completely, because had I done that, then why even call it a Babyface album whatsoever?
Right.
It was us collaborating, and because of that, pieces of you always kind of shine through.
Absolutely. We couldn't help but think of back to your days when you started LaFace with L.A. Reid, when you were kind of taking some of those younger artists under your wing and kind of giving them a platform. Everyone from, the Ushers, TLC, Tony Braxton, Donnell Jones, Outkast, et cetera, on and on. Can you reflect back on those times just for a moment, and remember what it was like helping those artists back then find their sound and their voice and help them break out?
You never looked at it as helping you. It was always just the art of it. So it was like no one was thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna hook you up. Now you can work with me. Be happy." It was always more of just kind of happy to work with an artist that was talented, and a chance for your songs to live, or a chance to push another producer that had something cool. From Dallas Austin to Jermaine Dupri to or to Organized Noise. Those guys were bringing things to the table, so it was a label situation. And I think that the whole idea of helping to open doors, if it works out, then you help that door open. It doesn't always work out, but the process of just going through the work and being in the studio and is just as important, because you can take that with you for life, and wherever else you end up. Right.
I just have to give you props on that again, though, because many people realize you as Babyface, a legendary singer-songwriter, obviously one of the greatest songwriters of all time, but they don't realize you helped be the platform for these other artists who then also became stars, and that's a big part of your legacy too that often doesn't get acknowledged. So, thank you for giving those contributions there as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. There is one artist I want to mention as well, because we've become close with him over the years, and we're big supporters, and that's John B. And I know you were a big part of his beginnings as well. Can you just reflect back on working with John B. early on?
Yeah, John B. Was a kid who was founded by Tracy, my ex, who actually started the record label Yum Yum, and then John B. came through, and he was just this really talented kid that had so many songs that he had already written, and he had a song full. He had a suitcase full of broken heart songs, and so he was 18 or 19. He was so young, and he was just already prolific, and so it was a pleasure to work with him, and it was also a pleasure to stay out of his way, because he, we did one song, we did a couple of songs together. The opening song we did together, "Someone to Love," we were so similar to each other that I didn't want to keep in there to where his identity wouldn't be able to show, because John B. has always had his own thing as well, and so he fortunately, he stuck. Something happened then, and people liked him, and to this day, people, John B. is remembered as, that one kid that's got soul, and that it comes natural, and he doesn't chase it, and he's always had that. That's always been part of his thing, and I wish it had gotten bigger than what he had got at this point, but you can't ever make those calls. But the one thing is that people still think and still like Jabzi to this day.
Absolutely. He's still killing it to this day, on the road doing shows. People are showing up to support him, and, we love that guy. Thank you for, your contributions to his career and helping him, break out and become someone we still love today.
Of course.
I mean, this is going to be a hard question probably for you to answer, but, you have probably more written hits than just about anyone we can find. And, I would just love to hear about your writing process. Like, how do these hit songs come to you? What is the process of, from start to finish of you putting a song together?
But it varies, and it's varied over the years. And a lot of times it was just me inside a closet with my 4-track or my MPC or whatever, and just kind of constantly, every day, just kind of trying to come up with something, not knowing whether it was a hit or not, but just kind of just writing stuff that you felt was heartfelt or not, and you just kind of just did that you go to work every day, and sometimes it would be with other people, and sometimes it wouldn't be, and it's one of those things where, initially you write songs and they're not necessarily commercial ready, and that was learned over the years, I think, how to put hooks together and put verses together that are catchy and doesn't go too long. You kind of get to the good parts sooner. And in the 90s, you were always able to do vamps and structure the song in a particular way, like the Boyz II Men songs and stuff like that. So it became a simpler process in that way. But I think that ultimately it changes over the years in terms of the writing process. Because sometimes it's a lot more collaboration, and I collaborate more, so I don't sound like I'm just in the 90s at this particular point, because you can get stuck kind of doing the same thing without even knowing you're doing the same thing. You think you're doing it differently, but you're not. So that's where the collaborating helps, and you do learn from that as well, as I mentioned earlier. So the writing process is ever changing, I should say that.
Got it. It's interesting looking at your discography here of all of the artists you've worked with, all of the music you've created. I just wonder, does it ever hit you, how much great music you've created? Because I've interviewed many, many, many artists, and not many of them have even close to what you've accomplished here. Like, do you ever think about, wow, I really created some of the greatest R&B songs and even beyond R&B into other genres of all time? Like, does that ever occur to you?
People say it to me a lot, I guess, and more recently, and I think that I don't sit back and think about it per se. Like when I do a show, I go through a medley of songs that I wrote, and it's about I don't touch hardly any of them that I've done throughout the years, but what's a good deal? It's probably like 30 minutes of doing covers of songs that I've written by other people. And I think that the biggest thing is when I was doing all of this, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of quantity or anything. I was just kind of writing songs, and so it just gradually just kind of caught up. And you wake up, and then one day you got a bunch of songs that you do with a bunch of songs. And that's really it. I don't know that it's not quite like, because I think the difference is because it was so spread out and so many different people, it wasn't like being Smokey Robinson where you wrote for the hit guys. You wrote for the Temptations, you wrote for the Supremes, you wrote for Stevie, you wrote for all these superstars that were all there at one point, so it felt like a movement. Whereas this was like, oh, let me go here, let me go there, go there, go there. Oh, you want to work? Great. And so it felt, that's why it snuck up.
Yeah.
Nobody was really seeing it happen, thinking of it in the way that it was, because it was so broken in terms of where it would come from and who would go to. It wasn't all at one place.
Yeah.
Had it been in one place, then maybe it would look different. But it was everywhere.
Right. All right. I mean, still think you're being a bit humble, but you know, it's. I want to thank you again for your contributions. You know, like I said, you created some of the greatest songs of all time, some timeless songs that will live on forever. Your legacy is you know, cemented. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
This might be another hard question to answer, but do you ever think about or look back and think that's the best song I wrote, in your opinion? Like, you look at it, it's the best quality in some way, or that stands out to you? Is that even possible to answer?
I think that, I mean, the songs I feel proud of, but I think for me, I always like to say I haven't written the best song yet. And that perfect song, I don't know that I've got to that yet. There's one song I think I wrote in high school that I never recorded that I think might be my best song.
Wow.
Because of I'm kind of amazed that I wrote it in high school and that I was writing those chords and writing the structure of it, and it just kind of hit me. I think I did have it recorded. Someone used it as a gospel song once. I said, "Go ahead, try it."
Right.
And it's really one of those songs that I felt like, okay, that was a really good song for the time period for where it was. I was a little ahead of my time. That would be the only thing where when I listened to that song, I said, okay, that kid had something. He wrote this song at 18 years old. And I wrote a couple songs at 18 years old that ended up being used much later. And so, like, okay, I can see that. Most of the stuff was terrible, but there were a couple good ones that were in there, you know.
Well, you'll have to look forward to hearing those someday if they do make it out of the vault. That would be interesting to see if it ends up on you or a different artist.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Just two more questions for you. This is another one that might be hard to answer, but when you look back at all the times you spent in the studio and think about some of the hits you made, is there a session that you look back on and think like that was the hardest song that I make? Maybe the process of creating that song just was so stressful or strenuous of getting one of those hit songs together. Does anything like that come to mind?
Nothing in particular, but I'm sure there were plenty of those and plenty of times when you're scratching your head trying to get something right. And, probably would have been more on myself than it would have been on the artist that might have been working on it at the time. There were songs that I did that were failed attempts, you know, where I couldn't get it right, so it never kind of came out.
Right.
But it's that's why, you know, it's never automatic where you say, I know this is it. You don't know. And so it's not really humble, it's just people really not knowing.
Yeah.
And when it works, and that's great. I don't walk away thinking, damn, I really did that one. I knew exactly how to hit him that one. You don't know. So I'm blessed and been lucky for the things to work that have worked, you know.
Right.
And just to be in the room with some people that certainly made it a little more possible because of who they were and what their voices were like. So had I done the work by myself, they wouldn't have had the same life. So
absolutely, it makes sense. And just last one for you. You're someone who's had success as a solo artist in so many different decades now: 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020s. We always talk about the evolution of R&B music, and so many people have so many different opinions, and I would love to hear your opinion on how R&B has evolved over the decades you've been involved in the genre.
Well, I think for a minute it had got kind of a little bit stale. We've gone through different versions of it, and things that were hot and things that were, from the soul, how you got the nouveau soul kind of movement, and You know, from Erykah Badu to Jill Scott to Music Soul Child, those are the things that we love, and that was the mark of it. Now you have Summer Walker, you have SZA, you have things that are being different. You have Kehlani. It is not all the same at this point. And then you have the idea of R&B when you try to say what is R&B and who is R&B, and well, should we not include Steve Lacy on that, and how incredible his run is at this particular point? And all those songs that give you feelings of what Prince may have done, or you know, you can hear his influences in Steve Lacy's music as well, or Gevion as well. So it's, you know, to the Jasmine Sullivan. There's a lot of music out there that's not all the same at this particular point. So I would say that people are trying to look too specific for a specific kind of R&B and say that R&B isn't the same anymore. That's because you're trying to get the same R&B, the same 90s, the same kind of feel as what it was. It's changed and it's different and it evolves. And it does very well.
Yeah, I mean that's a great perspective on it. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and certainly, you know, glad to see you willing to embrace the evolution and some of the, you know, great new voices we have now.
Yeah, I mean that's always, it's been that way throughout history. So, you know, I think that radio has changed. So
yeah,
I think because of that, it looks different. But these artists like Kehlani and Steve Lacy and SZA, they don't need radio the same way. They stream more than radio.
Right.
And so, you know, it looks different and it feels different because we don't hear it the same way, because the audiences, they have a direct feed to them. So we don't exactly know what's going on the same way. We can only know by the fact that when Kehlani goes out there, she's selling our arenas.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Of course.
I got to ask one quick last thing. Is there any artist you have not had a chance to work with that you still would like an opportunity to?
My dream artist is, and I don't know that it'll ever happen, but my dream artist would be Sade.
Wow. I can't believe that hasn't happened so far.
Well, she just kind of works with her crew, so that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that would be my dream artist.
Nice. Cool. All right, Babyface, that's all we had for you. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we're good.